Wow, what an introduction. You're all waiting for something special now, aren't you? You put me under pressure. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, my lords, ladies, and gentlemen. Now, I know there are lots of ladies here because I can see them. There's some gentlemen. I'm not sure if there are any lords, but I thought I'd cover all bases. Thank you for your attention. When first asked to give a speech at this event, I wondered, why me? I'm not Muslim. But then I thought again, does not being Muslim mean I care any less about the children being bombed in Syria, those facing famine in South Sudan, or the violence that women are experiencing in Iraq? The answer is plain. When humanity suffers, we all suffer, and we all should care. In 10 days' time, Ramadan begins. Now, as you know, it's a period of reflection and self-sacrifice, marked by daily fasting during daylight hours. Now, I'm not going to say that tonight you simply stare at the delicious food. That would be cruel. But I would implore you to think of those who have nothing, those who are forced to watch their children starve and sometimes face the agonizing choice of having to decide which child should eat and which should not. When we place ourselves in the shoes of others, compassion is never very far away. It is that compassion that Islamic Relief UK has been practicing for 33 years. This year, it relaunched with the strapline, Saving Lives Since 1984. This emphasizes the guiding humanitarian mandate of the umbrella group Islamic Relief Worldwide. And that mandate is to provide life-saving aid, food, shelter, and medical supplies to those affected by environmental and man-made crises around the world. In fact, Islamic Relief has made a significant contribution to every major humanitarian crisis over the last 3 decades. They've been instrumental in Ethiopia, Bosnia, Gaza, Sudan, Niger, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Haiti, Nepal, and Sierra Leone, amongst other countries. Their help has extended to more than 100 million people. Now, the charity has not only responded to emergencies, but has assisted communities to rebuild their lives. And do you know who's enabled them to make such a difference? You. 80% of all funds raised have come from individual donors. Now, as a journalist, I've sometimes experienced firsthand the ravages of conflict, political turmoil, and cultural and religious ignorance. In 2013, I visited South Sudan with the charity Plan International. Now, it would have been a fairly routine visit, except that I took my 2 daughters with me, and they were 14 and 10 at the time. I wanted them both to understand how privileged they are and to fully appreciate that for many girls around the world, their lives are full of injustice for a whole host of reasons. I'm an ambassador for Plan International's Because I Am a Girl campaign, which aims to give 4 million girls worldwide access to education and skills and end the practice of early and forced marriage. When we visited South Sudan, the country was at peace, having broken away from the north in 2011. It was Africa's newest country. Despite this, my younger daughter refused point blank to go. She kept saying, "Why are you taking us to a war zone? We're all going to be shot. I'm not going, and I'm going to tell Dad." She is, shall we say, my challenging child, but she did make me question the wisdom of traveling there. After assurances from security experts, we confirmed our journey. The trip was life-changing for me, and more importantly, my girls. My eldest in particular will never forget her encounter with a 19-year-old girl called Gloria. Gloria had given birth to her first child at 14, the age of my daughter, and was forced to drop out of school. She went on to have a second child, but was helped back into education by Plan. My daughter couldn't comprehend how she had managed to forge ahead with her education despite having 2 children and a traumatic past. All my daughter ever had to worry about was if she'd made the lacrosse team or how she would fit in her many extracurricular activities. She never had to strive to be educated. It was her right, and as such, she had never before realized that others had to fight for this basic human right. She embraced Gloria in a scene that brought tears to my eyes as I saw her realize that we live in a global community, and her concern should extend to girls just like her, even though they're growing up thousands of miles away. We also met Solomon, a teenage boy who endured beatings to protect his sister from an enforced marriage. He stopped the entire process by fasting until his parents relented. In a country where a dowry or bride price can feed a family for months, Solomon's actions were truly courageous and as wise as his namesake. But what happened to my 10-year-old daughter, I hear you cry? Well, believe it or not, she actually thanked me for taking her on the trip and matured overnight in a way that would have been impossible without such an experience. Islamic Relief is calling for an end to early forced marriage, not just in South Sudan, but across the globe, as part of its wider strategy to promote universal human rights and, in particular, establish gender justice, ensure child protection, and promote healthy families. Their intervention will be tailor-made to culturally appropriate contexts that are fitting and sustainable. Sadly, South Sudan has since returned to war, and famine has been declared in the country. More than 3.5 million people have been displaced in a country of about 12 million. Islamic Relief UK is not only actively addressing the famine as we speak, the charity is also working towards eradicating the practice of early enforced marriage. Islamic Relief is the first Muslim humanitarian charity to openly address religious justifications for the practice, and they'll be publishing a paper later this year on that subject. The charity has itself set the goal of placing this life-limiting and barbaric practice at the centre of its programmes and campaigns across the world. Islamic Relief is doing so much more than just responding to emergencies. In this context, it's helping to build resilient, fair societies where women are respected and empowered. Now, Islamic Relief has been in South Sudan since 2004 and so is well placed to provide insightful analysis of the developing situation. Famine, as I say, has been officially declared in 2 states, but being informed through its work on the ground, the charity is predicting a much bigger problem, which the rest of the world is slowly waking up to. Millions still remain at risk of famine, including more than 300,000 refugees. Islamic Relief has been helping thousands of displaced people, providing water and food packs, and without this intervention, thousands may not have been alive today. Most importantly, it seems to me that this charity has been and will be there for the long haul. It is not simply a responsive organisation appearing only when a humanitarian crisis presents itself, and then disappearing when it is seemingly resolved. Longer-term development and promotion of resilience have been clearly identified as the route to true problem-solving. It is easy to feed a man today, but if you provide him with the knowledge and the tools to be able to feed himself, he will eat tomorrow, as will future generations. Islamic Relief has provided millions of pounds worth of relief and is working in more than 40 countries. In Nigeria, the militant Islamist group Boko Haram is wreaking havoc in Africa's most populous country. They've been responsible for bombings, assassinations, and abductions in a bid to destabilise the government and create an Islamic State. The case of the 276 Chibok girls, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, they were kidnapped from their boarding school. That made international headlines, particularly when Michelle Obama endorsed the Bring Back Our Girls campaign. Although some of the girls have now been released, the group is still holding more than 100 of them. Though the Chibok girls became global news, they make up just a few of those who've been affected. Boko Haram has kidnapped thousands during its years of insurgency in the region, and the consequences extend beyond the political battles with the government. Thousands have been displaced and are now forced to live in camps, and in some areas famine has been declared. I have stood in the commercial capital of Nigeria, Lagos, and comforted the mother of one of the Chibok girls as we both shed tears for her loss. I'm happy to say that her plight has not been forgotten, even though the cameras may have departed. Islamic Relief have just registered their national office in Nigeria and plan to begin work there later this year. The good work that Islamic Relief started 33 years ago must continue. And I believe with your help it will. 110 million lives have been changed and saved since 1984, but the task is not complete. £185 million in aid to Syria, almost 20,000 lives saved in South Sudan, more than 100,000 helped in Indonesia and Sri Lanka. Please help Islamic Relief to continue this vital work.